Hi all. I'm kind of interested in an article which is about falsification in chess, as though chess players are some sort of research scientist, that they create hypotheses which they then test. This also links up, by the way, with Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, making hypotheses and testing them. So in this position, this was one of the papers, these people interested in this notion that chess players actually falsify in the same way that scientists do, and it's white to play. And the thought processes of various players were taken from this position. And apparently, the stronger players falsified more, the original idea. And in this position, there's a very tempting hypothesis, let's call it, based on pawn chain. As you would have seen from a lot of my live commentary videos, I often like to undermine the pawn chain if it's like this with f5. But here, intuitively, this bishop's outside of it, and there isn't too much pressure. There's also this active rook here. So there's other factors which in this particular position might make f5 less tempting. In an intuitive way, you might hesitate before you played f5. So I want to look at the falsification idea in various contexts to see if it's really practical. Now, in say the context of time limit, if-then sort of analysis versus more intuitive judgments, emotions, and hypotheses themselves. So time limit. If this is a 5-minute game, you might automatically play f5. It's a lot about intuition. So I don't think we're really saying that chess players are research scientists in 5-minute games. In club games, people blunder. Sometimes optimistic lines you get away with. Or sometimes your material down you swindle even. So you have to be optimistic. So the idea is that optimism, is sort of linked with, beginners in the article generally. That or people that just play moves very quickly without, verifying that the idea works or not. Now, the more verification that exists, the more, strong you're supposed to be. The less naturally optimistic, the more, I wouldn't say pessimistic. That's too negative a word. The more cynical or sceptical of your line. So here we could take this hypothesis f5. If you want to have a look at this position yourself, take a big 20 seconds and try and record your own thinking. And could you paste it in the video? In fact, if you could stop the video and look at it for more than 20 seconds, that would be great. But I'll give you 20 seconds now to try and do some analysis here from this position, and consider various things and please discuss your reason for what you think is the main line here of how play should go, for best play from both sides. If you want to stop your video now, please do so. I'm going to stop it for 20 seconds from now. Okay, so I'm going to tell you now if you're a research scientist or not. Well, if you played the move f5 very quickly, or you might have even chosen other moves, maybe bishop takes d5 you considered. Bishop d5, you're giving away a light square. Bishop, rook d5, black's still got a blockade. I think that might be a good move as well, actually, a slight advantage according to Ribker, actually. So if you were just looking at f5 because I prompted you, that's fine. Let's just look at f5. Now, one of the things which maybe intuitively, I said about the rook, having active play on the h file, that comes into bearing here. That it's not just the wreckage of the pawn chain here. Unfortunately, black has, if you played in this position, G takes f5, then black has bishop h5, and then that's an annoying skewer making use of that active rook. So perhaps at this point you might have just rejected f5 based on this skewer, or you might have tried to see further with queen g2, so attacking this rook. And here, to be honest, when I was looking at it, just briefly, without moving the pieces, I thought rook h4, and it will still be okay for black. But actually, white's slightly better here, apparently, according to Ribker. But with bishop d5, so we have a forcing tactical exchange. Maybe bishop takes f7, and you might not have seen any of that, or you might have seen in this position rook takes a3. So, you know, what does rook takes a3 do? Now this is getting a bit weird, because this threatens a mate in one, so maybe it's worth considering. Now, if you had seen this in your analysis, that's brilliant. I didn't really check that. Maybe that's why I'm limited in my growth as a chess player, because I'm not much of a research scientist. So in this position, okay, it seems absurd to give away the rook. You know, b takes a3, but apparently black in this position will now be better after queen d4. So again, threatening a mate in one. And then if king b1, bishop takes d1, and now if rook takes d1, queen takes c4, and black's better. So this is real trouble. If in this position, you know, anything doesn't seem to be that good. Bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, and now say rook takes d1. There's rook b5 check, and white's getting slaughtered. So all that trouble started from this rook. You know, this h-file rook. So it's an interesting test case position where the natural, you know, hypothesis based on, you know, strategic crush, let's say, that you've looked at the pawn chain, maybe you've looked at my pawn chain videos and you think, oh, f5, that looks a natural hypothesis, because you might play this in blitz because it's undermining the pawn chain. It's liberating your rook on the f-file. It's tempting. If you had optimism, you might play f5. If you had pessimism, you might play some passive move, or try and, you know, make your king a bit safer. But actually, that's kind of difficult here. King b1, there's rook takes a3, for example. But maybe that's not so clear anyway, because f5, it works better here because there's no bishop h5. So actually, you know, depending on the time limit, you've got more time. Now, in a correspondence style server, you would have the analysis board. You could check out any assumptions made, and you would end up with more clinical play if you took correspondence chess more seriously. Yeah, you know, you just analyse f5 on the analysis board, and maybe you see the skewer here, and you'd think about queen g2. But you'd have to be more creative, I think, to find rook takes a3. I mean, for me, that's I missed this. I mean, how many of you missed it, or from the initial position? I'll be curious to know, because it's quite a cunning tactic, isn't it? This takes and then only queen d4 will work. Anything else, there's nothing. There's no queen a5 here, so only queen d4. And if c3 here, queen takes c4. And, you know, what's the situation? Two rooks, bishop, queen. So black is the exchange down, but it's a really vicious attack. If you move the rook, knight takes c3, I guess, and that's quite crushing. And if you try and defend with king b2, then you win the exchange back, and you still play knight takes c3, because now there's a horrible pin on the rook. So actually, in the initial position, black's already got very active, lively pieces. So this seemingly, tempting natural move f5 doesn't work in this particular position. So if you were a research scientist, maybe you'd see all this analysis. Or in certain correspondence organisations, believe it or not, engines are allowed, so they would have seen it because they would have stuck the engine on for a certain depth and seen, maybe f5 was not that good. But for other reasons, actually, not g takes f5, e6, according to Ribker, is actually an advantage to white. So even this hypothesis of bishop h5 skewering is maybe fails to this e6, this tactical idea. So it's just like a big maze of variations. So I don't really know what we can draw from this conclusion. Would you falsify f5, or was the optimist in you correct all along? That basically, because of e6 now, you are breaking through. What does black do here? If he takes, he ends up losing the bishop. So coming out, you lose the lose the bishop. So he can't take. And if he plays like rook e8, then in this position, apparently bishop takes d5 is crushing. And now the situation has changed again, and you can take here. And in this position, queen g2, the picture's all changed because this rook is no longer on the d file. And so, rook a3 no longer works. You just basically take the rook here and play king b1, and there's nothing. So the situation changes very rapidly in chess as well. Queen g2, and that's a big advantage to white. If the rook has to move, then rook h1 apparently, and that's brilliant. Black's in real trouble, for example. If his bishop's actually getting trapped here, almost like, or he's losing lots of pawns. So fg6,